companies anticipate the recession ending, a lot of them are thinking about innovation, and a lot of our clients have been asking us about how we might help them with innovation initiatives. And I think this whole area has been given a lot of energy by this trend of crowdsourcing and some of the Web 2.0 technologies that are available to help with crowdsourcing. So this is a hot topic for a lot of our clients. It's an area we have a lot of experience. We work with Dell, University of Texas, and others in this area. So I thought I'd do a couple posts on innovation and crowdsourcing. And this post is going to be really about the 5 cases I think are really good to look at. Before I jump into the cases, just a quick definition of crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing obviously is combining 2 words, crowd and sourcing. And essentially what it means is taking a problem or a challenge that's usually solved by a one person or an employee or an expert, and instead of doing that, asking a small group of people or a larger group of people to help contribute and solve the problem. So that's really what crowdsourcing is all about. And we've seen it used for incremental ideas to improve products and services or business processes. We're working with a company to use it to crowdsource ideas for a new device. Design of new products is an area. There's companies have used it to create new ventures or to create new intellectual property. We've seen it used to solve really tough scientific problems, or to crunch data and look at data in new ways. So a whole range of ways that crowdsourcing is being used. The key benefits, really important, is one is just speed to market with new ideas. That seems to resonate with CEOs, CMOs that we're talking to. But also crowdsourcing can be a way of engaging employees and customers, because and especially employees. Employees need a way to submit ideas to the company that they know those ideas will be considered and be put to good use. So especially with employees, I think I can hardly think of any reason why the company wouldn't want to look at innovation and crowdsourcing with employees. So let me jump into 5 cases. I'm sure you've heard about some of these, but some of them hopefully are fresh. One that I just learned about from Andrew McAfee at MIT at a conference recently is Foldit. Foldit was a University of Washington initiative, and essentially what the problem they were looking to solve was around protein folding, which is one of the tougher scientific problems out there. Basically, proteins fold themselves, and they have to fold themselves in a certain way for our bodies to work. When proteins misfold, enough proteins misfold, that causes disease. So Foldit was aimed at engaging people from around the world, not just scientists, not just biologists, but people from different areas of expertise, to find new ways of folding proteins, basically, and to solve problems related to protein folding. So they invited a huge number of people to participate. They used gaming-like technology online. They came up with a bunch of new solutions. In fact, the top 10 solutions were from people that had only high school level biology. So solutions came from people with all different backgrounds. That was really cool. You can read about that in Nature magazine. Dell IdeaStorm was one of the early enterprise crowdsourcing initiatives. We had the great benefit of working on that. Basically, Michael Dell wanted a new way for customers to be able to submit ideas to the company and have them considered. A couple of years old now. They've generated about 12,000 ideas. More than 400 have been implemented. And they've also launched an IdeaStorm internally a couple of years ago for their employees. And I think that's best practice. If you're going to ask for ideas from your customers, you need to also allow your ideas or allow your employees to have that same opportunity. One thing we see Dell Idea Store doing now is being more focused around challenges. They haven't been very open to any idea, but they're getting a little bit more focused. Another really cool initiative, AT&T Innovation Pipeline. Patrick Asher down at AT&T in San Antonio is driving this. They've built a community of 40,000 employees who are contributing ideas. And Patrick told me recently they're going to plan to grow that to 100,000 employees by the year's end. What they do is all the employees suggest ideas. They take the top 10 of those ideas based on employee voting and ratings and reviews, and then the management considers those top 10s, and they've been able to implement a number of those ideas, and they feel like it's a great benefit to them. Fourth case worth looking at is Cisco iPrize. Sharon Wong out in Silicon Valley runs this one, and basically Cisco iPrize is about helping Cisco collaborate with entrepreneurs from around the world to identify their next billion-dollar business, which is pretty neat. It's got some prize money associated with it, I think $250,000 in incentives, but the real opportunity is to work with Cisco to make your idea a reality. They've run it 2 years. They have way more than 1,000 ideas, more than probably 5,000 participants, my estimate, and they have in 156 countries, and they've actually ended up with 2 winners. The first winner, they bought the company outright. The first company was about power management, and the second company, they licensed their IP, and it's a Mexico City team, and a very unique idea. But one of the quotes that Sharon shared with me is that they've generated more ideas from this external iPrize community in 2 months than their internal site and process did in 1.5 years. Pretty cool story. Fifth, a company that's been at this a long time, P&G's Innovation Initiative. They set a goal about 10 years ago now, I think, for 50% of innovation in their products to come from outside of the company. They have steadily built a community of scientists and product inventors from around the world, and that community is now 1.5 million people strong. And they basically post challenges on problems they're trying to solve on an ongoing basis and engage those scientists and inventors to solve those problems. It's been a great success, and now 45% of the innovation in their products come from outside of the company, and their productivity in R&D has increased by 60%. So that's a great case to look at. So those are the 5 cases. Just real quick, high-level learnings, things we've learned. Great ideas can come from anywhere. So no longer are great ideas just the purview of experts inside a company or outside of the company. Really, it's using crowdsourcing, using gaming-type technology online. You are able to get ideas from large groups of people, and good ideas can come from anywhere. Employees, customers, entrepreneurs, scientists, etc., they're willing to work with companies to develop new ideas. Got to get the ingredients right, the motivation has to be right, etc., but it's proven that you can do that. You can get those audiences engaged to develop new ideas. Third is, every time we've done this with a company, there's 101 reasons why companies shouldn't do it. Marketing is afraid, what are they going to do with all the ideas? Legal's afraid of the IP issues, so on and so forth, but all of those can be managed. The last sort of high-level key learning is, to be successful, you really need 3 types of individuals involved with this kind of idea generation community. Number 1, you need people with ideas. We found that that's sort of the easy part if you think it through. 2, you need to have people and groups involved that can fund the new ideas. Sometimes that's a little more difficult, but you got to be willing to put some money behind these things in order to make them happen. And third, you need people who can actually implement the ideas. If you have all three of those kind of players in a crowdsourcing community, you're going to have some success. So I think that's a good first post on this, and I'll do a couple more posts in the coming weeks. I'll look at those 101 ideas on why you should never do crowdsourcing in your business, and we can talk about those, and then I'll look at some best practices in the coming weeks.